Hey there, Survivor fans. Good morning. I am all over the place this morning. Just because I haven't watched Survivor on my normal day, it's now Friday, as opposed to it being usually a Thursday when I watch it. But this week I've been so slow and complacent on just catching up on all my TV shows. I still got like a really. I think I banged my head against someone. I think I did it at work and I didn't do it out when I was drunk on Wednesday. But yeah. I digress. Survivor week 8, episode 8 next week. And we're already at the merge. And we're merging at what? If Jack's going on to the jury now, that means we're merging at 14. And that also reminds me I have to now watch Nerdtainment. Because the only Survivor podcasters, Survivor channels that I actually do enjoy watching, because it is an impartial perspective on what happens as a viewer. When you've been on the show, like Bob has a podcast and things like that, it's hard to. You do have your own unique experience, of course, from commenting on being on the show, but it's nice to get it from people who can only hypothesize, guess what it's like out there, maybe one day be on it ourselves. So yeah, we just had episode 7. It had a weird name to it, but it's not as lane focused, so therefore I'm good. But yes, coming from you from London, we're talking about the tribal that just happened was very. It was interesting how that dynamic changed. I'm trying to think now how many of Lyra and how many of Roka are left actually of each section. Because in the past 2 tribals we've lost now 2 Vokai, which is interesting. Which means now we've lost 3 of each. There's now originally 7 of each on both sides with the merge coming up. Krishna's not going to go back to Lyra. She will stay with Vokai, but will Lauren flip and come over to the Girls' Alliance? Basically, because Krishna didn't trust the Women's Alliance on Lyro, I think that she may have an interesting perspective going into the merge. I can't believe she made the merge, because we all thought she voted out episode 3, 4, and 5. And I think she thought she was going out episode 6 today because of episode 7, because just the way 2 idols were played, and you're like, wait, are they coming for me? But I will.
Hi, I'm Sarah.
I'll talk to you guys in a second. There aren't many tribal councils where we won't forget the tribal council in a long time. Not from not just because I had layers upon layers of gameplay, layers upon layers of what Survivor does to you in the outside world compared to what you think it does to you when you're actually playing the game, and your perspective of what world you're living in and what your society you're creating. As I just said, you have to learn to trust people, but you have to learn to be able to know yourself enough to just, if you build it, they will come or they'll kick you out of it. Survivor's always like a metaphor for my life, so let's not get into my problems and my drama. But a very interesting point was about Jamal bringing up Women's Alliance. And because this season, Jeff said before even the season started, this is the strongest group of women they've ever had in a show for a season. And so that topic was always going to come up. And unfortunately, Jamal being around the center of obviously him and Jack had this thing about race last week, and now feminism this week. That's my word. I'm using, if I mistook that, I'm even doing it myself. But I stand by what I say. We all are judgmental and biased to basically what our lives will be like. We try and accept people for who we are. We try and see people for who they are, and I think that's also kind of what I say about myself. I work with people and I adapt to how I feel like we can work together. Sometimes if there's no trust there, I won't go to them for information, or I won't go to them to ask for help if I don't need to. That's just my own instincts that I built over the years. But because the generational gap or generational difference between the women on the Vokai tribe, Livo tribe. I'm getting more confused now. I still get confused who's on which tribe anymore. From Kelly trying to probably use that as an excuse of why she was doing this play with the idol to Dean, as well as Jamal's covering his ass after saying something like that. It's not quite as bad as what happened between Zeke and Zeke being ousted in Game Changers for being transgender. That was an attack. That was pretty brutal, and that was something magical came out of it for Zeke and for everyone else in his tribe, because they all became so like outside world of Survivor came into it, and the game stopped to go, why did you do that for? There was no need for you to cut at that straw. Anyway, that was a mistake someone learnt from their game. And probably won't play a game for it. Everyone's got their line. They were willing to cross, and they won't cross. And sometimes you don't know if that line is worth crossing until it happens. And I think Janet was also a very good storyline this week, because she went to Island of the Idols to discuss about calculated risk. Calculated risk. And she was the first person to actually really play the game and Survivor Island of the Idols at Island of the Idols with Robert Sandra. They're both like, she actually went through it. You could see her going like, if I do this, then I'm doing that. If I'm not going to play, then I don't need to do it for my alliance. And then she had this beautiful speech at the end to discuss the way in which women's rights are. We are still in a world where there is evolution to happen, where there's room to grow, where there's lessons to be learnt, and there are always new people to meet and help to mould our lives for the better. So, on that note, the episode was quite meh into the Tribal Council, and Kelly's play with the idol was very good for her game. Now that it's merged coming up, I'm curious to see how she's going to negotiate and navigate this next vote, because now with that Jason blindside last week, and who's really with who, I still think it's anyone's game right now, because I think anyone can go. I think it's David and Goliath, kind of like, we need a trio. We need a voting block to merge into a final three. I don't think it'll be all women. I think it'll be a mixture of both that, especially, but I think women will be behind most of it. Curious. We'll have to learn the guy as well tonight. So we're still female strong right now. Ponderosa is going to be curious for me, because if Jack's first member of the jury, and they have a final three, there's 12 members on the jury this year. Obviously last year we had whatever that episode was called. Different setup, that's the word. There was no Reem, but we have Elaine. Right, now we're going to watch entertainment, so I'm going to go say hello to Sarah and David, and I will see you guys next week. Hopefully the right day. Bye.